Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean go solo live? Have you ever been asked why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
I love sharing stories on Go Solo Live. If you love them as well, please consider making a small financial contribution to help support the show. You can go to www.patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Go Solo Live and show your love. There are some great gifts of appreciation, and I appreciate your support. Hello, sisters, and welcome to Go Solo Live. This is Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel. It's time to sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy my conversation with Donna Cravotta as she shares about how she started doing her solo travels at the age of 5. I'm so pleased to welcome Donna Cravotta as she joins us today from New York. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, Jennifer.
Thanks for making the time. I know we are now in summer, and I think the weather starts to influence us as hopefully you're having good weather where you are. No?
It will be good eventually.
Okay, so we're finally having actually spring good weather in Wisconsin, so we like to try and get outside and celebrate that when we can. So I want to get right into talking about your travels. And as we prepared for this, one of the things you mentioned is that you have had travel at all significant turning points in your life. And while we're going to focus on solo travel stuff, that was intriguing enough to make me say, we need to hear more.
Well, a lot of it was solo travel. And I will start with, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, hardcore Brooklyn girl from the get-go. And we didn't have a lot of money, and there was 4 kids and a single mom, and travel was like one of those things other people did. But on weekends, when everybody else's dad came to pick them up and mine didn't, I would get dressed up and sit in the hallway of the building that we lived in and pretend that I lived in Newport. And I had this whole scenario in my head of living in Newport. I didn't even know where Newport was. I was like 5 years old. And then when I started kindergarten, my very best friend moved away. We lived directly next door to each other. We were inseparable. And I was devastated. And she moved to Ohio, and Ohio felt like China. Because we didn't have a car. It just was not even, I was never going to see my second half again. And I was really depressed. And my mother somehow got the money in, this was like 1970, and she got the money to send me on a plane alone when I was 5 years old to go to Ohio and visit my best friend. And I remember having this blue suitcase that was as big as me, and there was really not much in there but pajamas with strawberries on them. And I went to Ohio, and we had all of these adventures because there was a tornado and we almost drowned in the basement. And, all of these things happened. The flight, which is like from New York to Ohio, it's like an hour. And there was plane problems, and we had to change planes. And I ended up in first class, and everyone was making this big fuss over me. So there were all these little adventures, and that's really all I remember. I was 5 years old, but I had the bug, and I just wanted to go everywhere. So it wasn't feasible that I was going to do much traveling, but my imagination took me everywhere. And we had World Book encyclopedias, and I read them religiously. And, I was so into travel in every way, shape, and form. Even though, like New Jersey was a distance for us.
Absolutely.
And, as I grew up, I've always found myself in situations where travel was involved. And every time I traveled, it changed me in some way that nothing else could. So, when I was in my, late teens, early 20s, I got my first job in a law firm. So one of my colleagues had a share house out in the Hamptons, which is like the beach area, about an hour and a half outside New York. It's very chic now. At the time, it was kind of on the cusp. And I went out there for the first time. I got stranded out in the middle of the bay. realized, like as I'm like floating there thinking, I'm like too tired to swim back. I hitchhike and I meet this group of people on a boat. And I became friends with them. And I was like, oh, I'm going to just hang out with these people because this group share house thing is not for me. And I'm still friends with some of those people.
No kidding.
And it wasn't feasible for me to travel on a regular basis, but I had this whole group of friends that were an hour and a half away. And I went out there every weekend for years and years and years. Then my job changed throughout the years, and I incorporated travel into my work. So I became a project manager in the law firm where I worked, and my job became to find things that didn't work and fix them. We had offices all over the world. So I was traveling to Paris and to London and to Germany. In Germany, I had to train 2 offices full of people with a translator on something I didn't even know how to do. Wow. And I did that. Washington, D.C., California, Menlo Park, Canada, all over. And I did this for a couple of years, and it was really successful. Then I had my child, and the traveling was not feasible again in my life. And it was I was really at a crossroads because I loved it so much. And I saw the change that I would be able to make by going to these different offices and, bringing this, influx of New York. We called New York the mothership because that was the main office.
Sure.
I said, oh, I have to keep doing my job. I'm a parent now, and like this relationship thing isn't working so well. So it's pretty much all on me. And I implemented a virtual training environment in 2002 when nobody did this. We got this new thing called a Citrix account. And I started doing online trainings with the Abu Dhabi office at 3:00 in the morning. They were like, well, let's see if it works with them. If it works with them, we'll go for it. And we ended up creating this entire virtual training environment with Train the Trainers. We had like all of the trainers in Europe go to London, and then I would just go to London and train the trainers. And we did the same thing. This is where the travel started again. They wanted me to go to Asia for a month with my son when he was just a few months old. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. So we were able to bring that virtual training to the Asian offices, and we sent somebody from the California office to train them. So, we built all of this, and that kind of set me up for creating a virtual business, because a couple of years after that, the relationship with my son's dad had gone south pretty quickly. And I was just stuck in this really bad place, and it was hard for me to make a change in my life while everything was going on. So what do? I get on a plane to the Dominican Republic all by myself. And I master planned how I'm getting out of this relationship over like 5 days in the Dominican Republic. All
right. So let's take a moment. Okay. I love where the story is going so far. But I definitely want to jump into a couple different things. First thing I want to just think of is, as a 5-year-old, what was your impression of air travel? Because that was a little while ago, and air travel back then was certainly different than what it was now. So, and certainly I can't imagine very many parents, and I know that there are certainly the unaccompanied minors for a variety of reasons, but I can't imagine many parents sending their 5-year-old in today's world alone on a flight. So what was your impression about what that experience was?
Oh, I loved it. I thought I was 40. I never envisioned myself as 5. It was everything. It was, if I could have done that every day, I would have been perfectly happy. I could have been a correspondent for the airlines. Okay. And back then, traveling was a luxury. So people got dressed up to travel. People,
yes.
There would be 10 people waiting to take you to the airport, because that in itself was something. It was a very different experience than it is today. And it was really an experience. And the plane that I was put on, and when we had the plane trouble, was not a plane that went from New York to Ohio. It was like a big honking 747 with a spiral staircase and the bar upstairs. And that's where I was. I was at the bar.
I love it.
You know, and it was a very different experience. Like I've sent my son traveling alone, and you know, you have to go through quite an extensive process
Absolutely.
to drop off and pick up children that travel alone. But you know, I had to run a plane. I was like, you know, I really could have done this every day.
That's fantastic. But yet, you know, in terms of how that influenced your career, I love that you said that you were going to find work that allowed you to travel, but that didn't necessarily mean in the travel industry.
No, the work, no, that just happened. I wasn't looking for work that allowed me to travel. I was working in a law firm, which is really, you can't get more structured than that.
Right.
And it was like a big law firm. They were like established in 1860 something, you know, one of the biggest firms in the world. And, you know, if it worked in 1947, let's not change it. That's their their management style. So the fact that I was able to bring travel into the job that I had was something in itself, you know, and that I was able to create take it to, bring in the travel and then pull out the travel when it no longer worked for me and create a virtual training environment. They were like, no, you can't do that. But like every trip that they sent me on, this was before budget cuts. So,
right.
You know, I was flying business class. I was staying in beautiful hotels. I had $100 a day budget to eat meals. So, you know, every trip that I went on was $25,000, $30,000. You know, it was pretty nice.
The glory days of actually traveling for work when it was a bit of a luxury in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that I talked them into doing the virtual training was I took my expense report to an executive group meeting, and I brought the Citrix bill, and I said, "You're paying me anyway. The Citrix bill is like $200 a month.
Sure,
it costs $25,000 every time you send me to Europe." And they were like, "Okay, let's give it a try."
Wow.
But it was it was not a travel job at all. I mean, I was, you know, there were months that went by that I didn't see daylight because I went in so early and left so late.
Well, and that's actually one of the other challenges with doing some travel for work is, and I've looked into those kinds of opportunities myself, is that one of the training gigs I was looking at, you were training from sun up to sundown. And then we had to go back and like review the work of the participants and grade papers or whatever that is overnight so that they'd have feedback to change the next day. I'm like, when do I get to actually experience the place where I am? And if the answer is I'm not, then that's not the kind of gig I'm looking for.
No, I always tried to tack on some vacation either before or after. I was usually pretty successful at that, but it wasn't a lot. It was like 2 or 3 days. You know, I really didn't get to spend a lot of time. But I did travel, you know, during that period. That was before I had my child, and I traveled. This is a great story. You're going to love this. So I'm working in this law firm, and, you know, we work crazy hours. I mean, it was expected that you worked a 12-hour day, right? So I made really good friends with somebody who worked on an adjacent team in the San Francisco office.
Okay.
So we would work together virtually because we were working on the same transactions. And we got to be friends on the phone because we'd be on the phone with each other 3-4 hours a day.
Sure.
But we started to talk about travel. And she said, I'm going to go to Italy by myself. I went to Italy by myself last year. I had the best time. I was like, well, no, you're not going to go by yourself. I'm going to go with you. So we spent the next couple of months planning this 3-week trip to Italy. And we had never met. So she flew from San Francisco to Newark Airport. We met in line at Newark Airport. And like, you know, long lost cousins, we're like, and we get on a plane and we go to Italy together, and we're going to spend a few days in Rome, then rent a car, go to Tuscany for a week, go to Venice, Florence, and then back to Rome. So we get to Rome and we go, and I was fully expecting to gain 15 pounds on this trip. This was my plan. I prepared for it. And we go out for the first meal, and I find out that she's got all these digestion issues. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You have to eat everything on your plate here.
Wow.
So we ended up, my gaining 15-pound plan was shot out the window. And we ended up picnicking all through Italy, and we would just pick things up along the way. We had a backpack, and we would just find some place to sit down and have our little picnic at wherever we went, and we had a great time.
Nice.
We really had a great vacation. But that, I mean, like, we didn't even meet. And it wasn't like we were going to go away for a weekend. We were going for 3 weeks.
Okay, well, again, those are the days of being a little bit more daring, I think, in some of that stuff, which is great. I do have a travel companion profile questionnaire that if anybody is attempting some sort of travel like that with an unknown or unfamiliar companion, I could probably help. So people can reach out to me for that resource at jennifer@transformviatravel.com, because I too have recently traveled with someone, and we shared a room, and you can travel and there's a lot of give and take, which is not really a problem. But one of my core beliefs is that I only let the news enter my world in my choice. I don't listen to the news regularly. I'll go out and seek the information, but I don't need the news. I don't need the newspaper. I really choose how I let that in. And the person I was traveling with woke up to the news and went to bed to the news every single day. And I'm like, we have to negotiate this, because I can't. That's not going to be good for my sanity. So it's very interesting, just these little things that people just, you don't think, it's your habit. You don't second guess whether that makes sense to somebody else or not. But it's something that when you're going to be traveling with someone for 3 weeks, to know some of that information about wouldn't be the worst thing. And to then have a plan or have negotiated, especially if you're traveling with somebody and then you want to go off and do your own thing. Some people are really offended by that. I'm like, no, that's how I preserve my sanity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that wasn't an issue at all. We got really, really well in that respect. It was just the food, but we worked it out, and we just, we would picnic and just, she'd get what she wanted. I would get what I wanted. We'd find some unbelievably incredible place to sit down and have our meal. And what was really funny was that, several times we were right near an outdoor cafe, and people at the outdoor cafes were like, what do you got there?
Right? Isn't that fun?
Oh, look at that. Let's do that.
I love it.
Yeah, we had a really good time. And, I've always traveled. We used to, my group of friends out in the Hamptons, every winter, we would get together and we'd rent a house in St. John. And we wouldn't rent just any house. We'd rent one that was an Architectural Digest. But we would get enough people together where this was an affordable thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, we would go down. I mean, one year, I think we were 14 people. But we had a house with a pool that had a palm tree growing out of the middle. That doesn't happen.
No, that's pretty great. Well, let's go back to then the part where I put a little pause in our story was where you were taking 5 days to figure out the strategy with your child's father.
Yeah, we didn't have a good relationship from the beginning, and I just happened to get pregnant. So we tried to make it work, and it didn't. And he didn't want to let go. And it was all on me. Everything was on me, and it was really hard. And I still had the job with the 1,000,000 hours, and the traveling stopped, so it wasn't so much fun anymore. Training sessions at 3:00 in the morning with Abu Dhabi, and then being on a 7:00 train to get into the city, getting home in time to juggle food and diapers and babies and all of this stuff. It was not a lot of fun. It was a lot of stress. It was a lot of pressure, and I realized that it was going to be easier to do this alone.
Absolutely.
But the problem is that I just didn't have enough headspace with everything that I had going on in my life to figure out how to make this happen, because it wasn't going to be, hey, let's have a conversation. This isn't really working. That was not going to happen. So I just needed to get away, and I came across some deal to the Dominican Republic, and I clicked on it and bought it. And 3 days later, I was on my way to the Dominican Republic I brought a 5-subject notebook with me and a big thick book to read that I never even opened. And I really protected my boundaries, which is usually a challenge for me. And I made believe that I didn't speak English because I didn't want to talk to anybody. I just needed to shut off from the world and figure out what came next. And I did. I had my plan. I went home. I put it into action. And because I had steps to follow, no matter how hectic and chaotic life got, I was able to say, okay, well, I checked that off the list. What's next? I checked that off the list. What's next? And I really believe that without taking that trip, it would have been much worse.
That makes complete sense. And I think part of that is when you talk about this time and space, like you were able to get away to gather your thoughts and not be limited by your routine and all those other responsibilities that then get in and make it messy. And you could think about what is possible, and then you come back and work your plan.
Yeah. And it took me about a year for him to leave our house. I mean, it was really kind of enmeshed. And then I tried to maintain the house by myself for a little while. And I realized that made no sense whatsoever. And I started to build my maintenance-free lifestyle at that moment.
Maintenance-free lifestyle. Can you expand on that?
Yes. The first thing I started with was a list of what absolutely had to be done by me and what didn't. And then I went through the what didn't list and I removed everything. It didn't really need to be done at all.
Can you give some examples?
Oh gosh, it was a while ago, but there was, I could tell you things that I passed off to other people.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Laundry, house cleaning. I sold my house and moved to a condo, so I'd never have to shovel snow, garden, drag garbage pails with, worms in them up to the sidewalk at 2:00
Right.
in the morning. I don't have to worry about a skunk breeding in my wall. There's none of these things. Roofs don't leak. I don't have a roof. I live on the ground floor. There's somebody upstairs for me. They have a roof. So I moved into a condo where they do everything for you. I got somebody to clean my house. I sold an old car and bought a new car with a maintenance plan on it. Anything that would require me doing something that I hated doing, I just fixed. I adjusted it. And I didn't realize at the time that I was starting my maintenance-free lifestyle, but this is what I've created. I really have very little responsibility of things that I don't like to do. My son is amazing. We have this wonderful relationship. He is in high school now. So he's just finishing up the 9th grade. So we've got 3 years until he goes off to college. And I started my business 10 years ago. My business is all virtual. Everything, it happens in my laptop. My team is virtual. I don't have to spend time with anybody during any portion of any day. Everything happens on Zoom and social media. And I have clients that I love. And when my son goes off to whatever it is that he does, I'm just traveling. I'm going to live every month. I'm going to live somewhere else.
I am so excited. So we're taking a step back because now you're talking about the future. I want to go back to this just to dig in for a moment on this maintenance-free lifestyle.
Okay.
So you really evaluated what you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that allows us to get some perspective on what do we really have to do versus what do we think we have to do.
Yeah. And then the I think I have to do this list really is, it's long and it relates to so many things. I can speak to this in hindsight because this was all 10, 12 years ago in that time frame. And a lot of the things that we tell ourselves that we need to do are things that are issues that we need to clear up.
Absolutely. And I think they're shoulds.
Yes.
And they may be our own shoulds.
Yes.
Or they may be other societal shoulds.
Yes.
But
things that were ingrained in you.
Yes.
And there is a direct correlation with what needs to be cleaned up in your life. And, all of this entire journey of creating this maintenance-free lifestyle, which I started easily 5 years before I started talking about it. It's about letting go of the things that don't serve you in any way and don't benefit your life. I stand by, once you're 40 years old, you should never clean a toilet again unless it's something you like doing.
I love that. And I would say, I have a phrase where I say, don't shit on me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to shit on myself, and I don't want others to shit on me. And I make a lot of choices, and I take responsibility for those choices. But when people are like, oh, I'm so busy. Well, I'm busy, but I'm busy with what I've chosen. Like, I often think people think busy is like all of these shoulds, all of these things that are imposed on us.
Well, there's busy and there's busyness.
Well, there's that. That is real.
Yeah.
That is real. But so that's like this idea of really being mindful about what you're allowing to take up your time and space in your life. And you looked at that as tasks. You looked at that as the space in terms of your home. You looked at that as possible challenges that you'd be encountering, and you've just started to eliminate them. But I really appreciate that you shared that this was not the fast and easy thing either. There was a 1-year plan involved in this.
Yeah, when I made that plan, I had no idea how long it would take because, so much of it was out of my control. I mean, not that we really have control of anything, but, the only thing I was able to control was my reaction.
Absolutely.
Because I was working with another person who I was trying to get to do something that he didn't want to do.
Yep.
And, so I had to really train myself to control my reaction because my lack of reaction is what ultimately got me what I wanted.
Absolutely.
And that was a very hard lesson for me because, I've always been the fixer and if there's a problem, beat it up till it's not a problem anymore. And I had to migrate from that and learn to step back, and some things just need to unfold in their own time.
And allow for that. And, patience is hard when we are ready for change, but that's when it's most important as well. So that I know so many people who are ready for change and they jump, and that can work. I'm not saying that never works, but to be patient and to let each step of that process unfold as it's intended to, and that you're allowed to progress and possibly even thrive through that process. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. And, just to swing back to travel, like most of the travel that I've done throughout these pivotal points of my life, they were reactionary. They were a result of something.
Okay.
This next stage of travel that I'm coming up to in a couple of years, it's planned.
Absolutely.
I'm building my life to support that.
Very intentional. So I think we talked a little bit more about this off the air. So let's make sure that this gets on the air. So what do you see in terms of your future for travel once your son is out of the house?
Well, I'm going to answer that two ways. One, in the personal relationship with my son, I see that we have adventures together. I mean, which we already do. Like for the holidays, instead of getting, pulled into other family drama, we go away.
Nice.
We've been doing that for the last couple of years. When he was 13, for some reason, it was really important for me that he turned 13 in Italy. So I didn't have enough money for both of us to go. So I sent him on a teen tour, and he turned 13 in Italy.
Wow. How cool is that?
And he went by himself. Well, with a group of people. But.
Sure.
And we
sounds
prepared
fantastic.
for that. Like we spent 8 months preparing for that, going to monthly meetings, and it was a whole structured thing. And we're going this year. We're going to spend his birthday in Montreal, and bike ride through Montreal.
So you're instilling this passion in him as well.
Yes.
How do you see that manifesting?
I'm not sure. I don't want to project anything onto that. I want him to unfold.
Fair enough.
What he's supposed to. But our plan, and we talk about it a lot, is that like when he's on break or if he needs me, I mean, because his big concern was like, where are you going to be? You could be, with a Sherpa up on a mountain somewhere. And I told him, when you need me, I'll always be there.
Right.
Whatever you need. It could be a phone call, or if I have to get on a plane and come to you wherever you are, I will do that. you're always my number one priority. And then he's relaxed about all of that. So now we talk about the adventures that we're going to have when we're together. And instead of coming home, because home will always be here, we have maintenance-free condo. We just need to lock the door, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Maybe we're going to meet in Switzerland. Maybe we're going to meet in Hawaii. Maybe we're going to meet in, Ohio. I don't know. whatever we plan on doing.
You don't have to know.
We don't have to know. And so that's my plan with him. And this way we always have our adventures. It's never boring. It's never stale. We're always going to look forward to seeing each other because it's going to be something fun.
Right. No, that sounds fantastic.
And then for me personally, I just love to travel, and I just love it. I love to meet new people. I love to go into a city. I mean, I'm a city girl at heart. I love to go into a city where I've never been before and get on public transportation and see if I could find my way around.
That's actually my strategy as well. I am much more of an urban traveler than a rural traveler. And I'm like, get me on public transportation, let me get the lay of the land, and then I'm going to go nuts.
Yeah. And I want to be I plan on being a 60-year-old ski bum because I kind of missed that boat when I was younger.
I love it.
I want to grow my business through travel because the work that I do, it's a totally different approach to social media and PR. And I want to host workshops and, retreats and teach people how to own their voice online in a different way and just do this globally. And I also intend on opening a foundation to help women get out of difficult situations, teach them that, they can create something out of nothing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to make sure we are going through our time so very quickly. And I want to make sure that if you have any other major lessons that you've learned as you've traveled, that you get a chance to share those.
Just to be open, there's a whole world out there. And sometimes it doesn't need to be mostly it doesn't need to be like a big glossy planned thing.
Yep.
But just to immerse yourself in a way that other people live it changes you. It changes you in a way that's fundamental. And everybody should have that experience. I mean, I encourage you to really spend time with them doing other things, taking them into different cultures, different lands, even if it's just a restaurant, where where it's heavy on culture. Just open them up to experiences. Just when we had no money, when I first started my business, my son was probably 4 and we couldn't go away over the summer. We couldn't take a vacation. So what I did was I found a really inexpensive hotel room in New York. I booked it for 2 nights and we just went and played tourists in New York City.
Perfect.
We hotel. We went and we watched the people at the Today Show online.
Sure.
And we're hanging around in Times Square because our hotel was right there. And he just said to me, he goes, "Mommy, I'm going to pretend I'm from France." I was like, "Why?" He goes, "Because everyone's from somewhere else." He goes, I kind of feel like I should be from somewhere else too. And he just pretended that he was from France. He put on this accent. And for 2 days,
awesome.
He was from France. And we just, we made an adventure out of it. I didn't have a lot of money, but I scraped together a couple of $100s to be able to do something where we weren't just home. We didn't just go to the pool. We didn't do the same old, same old.
I love it. So again, I really do support and encourage this idea of being a tourist in your own backyard as well, because you get a chance, when you put on that tourist hat, you get a chance to look at things a little bit differently, and you get a whole new appreciation for the space that you're in as well.
Mm-hmm. I grew up in New York, and I didn't go to the Statue of Liberty until I was 25 years old. And that's what, after that experience, I would take a day off every year and just be a tourist in my own city.
Absolutely.
I would do something that I never did.
Absolutely. No, I think that makes complete sense. And, it doesn't matter what city you're in or what area you're in, you can always find something new to appreciate. And I'm in the Midwest, so we really treasure our summers. And I know there's so many great lists of things to do in summer in any area that you're in. One quick Google search and you will find amazing things to do that fit all sorts of interests. And if you take the moment to go do that alone and to look at the space that you're in with this idea of, appreciation, the concept of appreciative inquiry, or the process of just appreciating the beauty of where you are, and look for everything beautiful and unique and spectacular about where you are. It can change your whole person, not only in the moment, but just the way that you're looking at things going forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, when as women, regardless of what our family situation is, there is always some point in our life where we're responsible for too many people.
Amen.
And to travel alone and not have anybody attached to you in any way, and you could do absolutely anything you want, is so freeing. I shared my travel stories with the woman who cuts my hair.
Mm-hmm.
And this was about a year ago. And she was like, oh, I could never do that. I could never. She said, I guess she's in her early 30s. She's got 2 young kids. She's divorced. And she goes, I could never do that. I could never travel alone. I haven't even gone to a movie alone. I can't go to a restaurant alone. Yep. And I was like, okay, well, why don't you do this? I said, start with a restaurant alone, go to a movie alone, and then start to think about, even a day trip somewhere. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to get on a plane. You can drive a half an hour away and, go take a tour of some mansion somewhere or something, have a picnic or whatever. It doesn't need to be anything over the top. Well, she took it to heart. And within a couple of weeks, she booked a trip to the Dominican Republic by herself without her kids. Yep. And it changed her life. And I recently bought a new car. So she was over a couple of weeks ago doing my hair. And she has the smaller version of my car, but she was like, oh, how different could it be? And she got in my car and she was like, oh my God, this is the car I need. I aspire to this car. She just came home with it on Monday.
That's awesome.
And she just emailed me to say, I totally changed her life. And it all started with pushing her to travel alone.
Well, and sometimes people just need permission that it's okay to do. Like, oh, I've been thinking about it. Oh, that would be interesting. And there's a lot of people out there who'd be like, well, why would you want to do that? As soon as you hear that like crushes that spirit of solo travel. And that one woman who says, well, you could do that. Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And, I think like now that she's gone to the DR, I bet that that's going to be the place that continues to call her.
It is. She went again.
Because that place that you go, that you find yourself or you free your spirit, it's not always about the destination. It's about like the experience that you had with yourself while you were in that destination.
It's profound.
It is. It's so meaningful. And a lot of people think solo travel is like, just because I want to see the world. And I'm like, hey, I want to see the world, but I am not a bucket list traveler. Hey, there's a cool opportunity, and hey, I'm in a place where I probably could use that personally. Let's go make a match.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow your heart.
Absolutely. Well, I want to make sure that you let people know a little bit about the work that you do and how they could find you.
Okay. The name of my company is Social Pivot PR. My website is socialpivotpr.com. I'm on social media as either that or Donna Cravotta. And what I do, it's a combination of social media, PR, and SEO. And it's about finding the people that you want to connect with, listening to them, doing research about your market, and connecting with the people that you need to connect with. It's a much smaller, tighter, more intimate social experience, but it really works. And it gives you insights into your industry and the way you conduct yourself online that really nothing else does.
I love it. And so you've already indicated where they can find you. Do you have anything coming up where events or anything else that you'd want to promote or make sure that that people are aware of?
Nope, I don't have anything planned. I recently rebranded my business a couple of months ago, and I used to have a program where I had over 200 people in the program. But I scaled everything back because I realized that the work I do is really deep. And the results are best when I work with a small group of clients. So as soon as I made that shift, I got so busy, I didn't have time to create anything, but it's coming soon. So if you just come to my website and connect with me on social media, I'm very responsive. We can stay connected and just let me know where you heard me. And we share generously on social media as well. So you'll find me through sharing this interview.
That's awesome. Donna, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today and share your travel stories. I know you have a lot more to share, so maybe we'll have to do a part 2 in the future.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Wasn't it great to hear the stories that Donna shared with us today? It's important to remember that taking time and space to clear your head and get a different perspective can allow you to create a strategy for your future. We've reached the end of today's episode, and the conversation doesn't have to end there. Go to www.transformviatravel.com to join our email list or follow us on Facebook at Transform Via Travel or on Twitter at Go Solo Live. Don't forget to share this episode with friends who might be interested in learning more about solo travel. And if you're interested in being a guest, reach out to me directly at Jennifer@transformviatravel.com. Until next time, remember, go solo, not alone.